Hey students, so this is going to be the first of the lecture videos that are associated with the lab section of the course. And this seems like a good time to talk about how to get set up with RStudio and such. Uh, so just to make sure, so you're going to need to install R itself, which is a different thing. So here I have CRAN pulled up. This is where you can go to find R and install R. You can click on one of these links. I'm actually using Linux, so I would use something else I would use my package manager basically to install R. So you need to install R, and you need to, well, okay, you don't need to do this. All right, we're not doing this. This is stupid. I'm done with this. All right. You also need to install RStudio. Or, okay, you don't need to install RStudio. I just recommend that you do. Because, like I myself, for example, do not use RStudio. I am content to use Vim. So, like, vim test.r. Like, I personally am fine just using Vim for all of my R work. And Vim will do pretty much what I want it to do. Well, I have this R package called nvim-r that will work, so I can have an R interpreter and everything, and then I can use my Vim key bindings and also my Vim snippets. But you may not like that. Vim is kind of a beast to learn on itself, and I don't want you to spend your time learning Vim. This is about R. So, and besides, RStudio, I used to use RStudio. RStudio, I have heard from CS majors, of which I am not one, that it's one of the best IDEs they've ever encountered, period. So this does not contain R, by the way. Both of these things are free, and it doesn't come with R, but all it does is provide a nice environment for working with R. Let me show you. So I'm going to load up RStudio so you can get a sense of what it is. So RStudio, let's go ahead and let's just create a basic R script. So RStudio comes with a bunch of panes, and you can navigate through your system. There's often going to be a pane where you are going to have some sort of document open. In this case, I have an R script, so I could type print hello world. Down here, I have the R interpreter. This part is actually R, so I can actually type in valid R code, and I can type print hello world, and it will run R. Whereas and up here you can have some sort of document open to have your stuff in. So I could do like a 2 + 3. And it often comes with hotkeys that makes it very easy for you to do your work. So you're probably going to want this for your R work. I don't think on Mac or Linux R comes with a GUI. On Windows it does, because Windows cannot live without a GUI. But it's very bare bones. So I strongly recommend getting something like this. So let's see. So just to kind of give you a sense of what the homeworks are going to look like, this is what I want, right? Okay, so here are some of the Math 3080 projects, and these are going to be in the form of R Markdown documents. R Markdown is, let's move that. So R Markdown itself, it's not exactly R. It's a mixture of R and a formatting language called Markdown. So the parts that you see that are not in gray, the parts that are now currently in blue, none of that is, well, okay, actually there is one thing that is R. No, not even that. That's not even R. That's just telling you that it looks like code. All right, so none of this is actually R code. This part right here is actually R code. So you can't run this part, but this part I can press Control Enter, and it will run down here, and it's valid R code. So a lot of your assignments will look like this, and even if there's like a LaTeX math, like this part right here is this is math. So this is LaTeX. This isn't even R or Markdown. It's something else entirely. It's LaTeX. And R Markdown will actually show you how this translates into a math formula. So RStudio has fancy features, like, for example, when you are working with RMD files, these R Markdown files, like, they're readable without processing them, without converting them. And you can even insert the results of analyses into these documents. But generally, you are going to want to compile the document and actually run it. So you can click on this knit button. You have to have a package called knitter installed. Is knitter installed? Let's double check. I recently had... Ooh, it's not installed. So, all right. You're going to need this package knitter in order for it to be able to work. Here's kind of recently, R just recently got a brand new version, R 4.0. And it's a big version. For one thing, it is forcing us all to recompile our packages so that they are working with R 4.0. Packages are a very important part of R. And in addition to that, like, some of the stuff in my lecture notes is actually not... I think there are some parts of my lecture notes that are no longer true. Or at least they are not true for R 4.0. So I might have to draw attention to parts where it's like, this is no longer true anymore, as of R 4.0. So that's one reason why my R system is not quite what it used to be, because all the packages I installed for it before, a lot of them are no longer any good because of R 4.0. So that said, this is more an issue for me, since I've already been using R. This is not an issue for you guys. But in principle, this button should exist for your installation, and there's a good chance that when you click one of these buttons, like if I had actually clicked this button, I probably would not have successfully created a PDF file, because it would have said that I was missing packages. So I installed one of the packages just now that I knew I was going to need in order for this button to actually work. Oh. I think I accidentally clicked it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not actually working right now because the packages that it needs are currently installing. So, but yeah, that's a fancy feature. You yourself are going to edit this document. You're going to make your code changes here, like... you're going to type here 1 + 1. That's not the right answer, by the way. And you would then save that. I'm not going to save this. And submit that result to me. And I would be the person who downloads everybody's submissions and knits them and runs them and grades them. So there's that. Let's. Oh, it's not going to. It's not going to let me do it. Yeah, it's going to insist on finishing all of this installation, which is probably going to take a while. Oh, nuts. I kind of want to kill this. I'm a little afraid to kill it, though. I'm going to go into something else. Okay, I'm going to go to my fallback. The stuff that I actually use. All right, so that's RStudio. No, because you're going to install it. Okay, actually, this just got back to working. Okay, so R Markdown. If you wanted to create an R Markdown document, I just created a blank one. Oh, you really are not going to do anything, are you? You really aren't going to do anything. Oh, nuts. Okay, we're going back to Vim. Test.rmd. Okay, so in an R Markdown document, now in RStudio, a lot of what I'm putting in there right now would have already been there. but I'm just going to type it in right now. So I'm just going to create an R Markdown document from scratch. So at the very top of an R Markdown document, oops, at the very top, is kind of this header section, and in this header section, we're actually putting here is something. There's a lot of different systems that are involved in here in this. This is actually something called YAML, but we're going to put in stuff such as the title of our document, basic document, and another section that we can put in is author. We could put in, what's another thing, like the date. So today is 2020-05-11. And one field that we really should probably put in is output. And PD. I'm going to want a PDF document, but I don't know. Let's just put HTML document. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And these are some options that tell our Markdown how it's going to be rendered. And there's actually multiple options that we could put in here, but these are kind of some minimal options that you want to put in there. Then after you do that, you would start filling this up with Markdown syntax. Markdown syntax. There's actually an R Markdown cheat sheet. So R Markdown cheat sheet that is provided by RStudio, and I would strongly recommend having a look at it and maybe downloading it and printing it off for yourself, because there's a lot of stuff in this cheat sheet. So there's a lot of syntax. Like, for example, if we wanted to put a header in our file, we would type in #header1 or whatever we wanted to call our header, like, for example, introduction. And we can actually have multiple levels of header. So this side of this cheat sheet shows the syntax, and this side shows what it translates into. So if you were to click this knit button, looks like it's done. Okay, so we can actually go back to this. So I want to undo any sort of changes because I don't want to accidentally save this. Let's create a new Markdown document. It's probably now going to ask me to install R Markdown, and this time I'm going to click yes because it's not installing anything anymore. Let's give that a second. But then you could start writing in text. So, and just plain text. So this is some text. This text is, so if I wanted to put bold, I would put 2 stars around it, bold. And then I could also say this text is italic, and italic text is wrapped in 1 star. And you can just start putting in some basic formatting like that. All right, let's click yes. And this syntax will eventually get translated into a document where you would have bold text, you'd have italic text, you could have superscripts, strike-throughs, you could put links in your document. This is a link to Wikipedia. So we would type in http, is it S? I think it's S, //www.wikipedia.org. And that would be a link to Wikipedia. So when we turn this thing into an HTML document or a PDF document, there would be a link in our document. And you just type it in plain text. If I wanted a new paragraph, I type 2 enters. I make 2 new lines, and I say, this is a new paragraph. This is some math. And so for the math part, let's go ahead and get some LaTeX math online. If you're not really sure how to enter LaTeX math, I just clicked on a link, some website, codecox.com. You can probably just rewind and watch what I just did. And let's say I wanted 3 to the power 2. So I could type 3, click on this. Why is it? Okay, so for some reason, this is not working. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so I could type in 3 to the power 2, and it would show me what it renders as. If I wanted an integral, I could type in... Well, let's just erase all that. I could type in integral, and we put an underscore, so 0 to 1, x dx. Yeah, so you could use this website to come up with some LaTeX that you could then copy into your Markdown document. You would wrap it in like a single $sign if you want inline mode. So this would be one. We can say 1+1. And if you want display mode, you could do double $signs. And put in your LaTeX math. So that part right there is LaTeX. So the interesting part, though, is when you start putting in R code. So R code is going to be where you have 3 backticks, a curly brace. I call it a curly brace, and then you have the letter R in it. And there might be some additional options. For example, if we go looking at this cheat sheet, we could see there are some options that we can put into our code blocks. Like, for example, here is a code block where they have the option eval equals false. You have one where you have echo equals false, and here are some possible parameters that you could set, and you separate different parameters. Like, for example, if I wanted to say both eval equals false and echo equals false, I would put a comma between them. You might not always be setting this. One you might actually want to set is error equals true, just to make sure that your document actually knits when your document actually knits and there's errors in it, it still compiles. So you'll see the errors, but it won't just not compile. So, and then in this block, everything that goes into this block is actual R code. So 1+1 is R code. X is 1, 2, 3. I just made a vector. Sum of X. All of this is R code. And then when the document gets compiled, it will actually run the R code. So I don't want this anymore. So let's go ahead and copy all this now that RStudio is working. So let's see. Let's create a new R Markdown document. This actually comes with a wizard. So if you want to say, so this is a title. And you could say Curtis Miller. If you want, you can pick HTML, PDF, or Word. You can change this later if you want. It will come up with a basic R Markdown document for you to work with. I'm just going to copy all of this and paste in the code that I wrote before. It comes with this very nice fancy syntax highlighting. If you hover over the math, it will actually render the math for you too, which is very nice. And if I could run this in the console below to get a sense of what this code is doing, and then I could click knit. This knit button should now work. So let's save this in documents as test.rmd. And then R Markdown will take the stuff that we wrote. It will convert this so that it's no longer just in this markup syntax. It's going to actually be something like we have bold and we have italic now and we have a link. I wonder what happens if I click the link. Does it actually open up in this window? I don't know. It's a link. And you can see the math. Oh, well, look at that. Yeah, it worked. So I don't want that. Yeah, close tab. And also, more importantly for you guys, you have your R code, and it actually runs the R code, and it shows the results when that R code is run, and it inserts it immediately into the document. And if I wanted to change how this document was being created, I could say, when I click on it, I could change it to instead like PDF document. You have to have LaTeX installed on your computer in order for the PDF output to work. If you don't have LaTeX installed, it's not going to work. And installing LaTeX, you can figure that out. But you can do something like this, and it will work. So, and now I have a nice PDF document with my text, with the math, and with the R code and the results of the R code. And there are some things that you can set. For example, if I said echo equals false, then the results of this R code would actually not appear. Well, no, actually the results would show up, but the code itself would not appear. Yeah, you just see the results. You don't see the code that made it. You probably don't need to be setting a lot of those parameters, but if you're curious on what those parameters are doing, you can look at these options over here to get a sense of what parameters you could possibly set. And there's other parameters than this too, but this is probably mostly what you need. This was just a very quick introduction to R Markdown and RStudio. This should be enough for you to get going with it. I'd even, you know, it would be really awesome. I would love it if you could submit your assignments in Markdown and documents like this. And I'm not just talking about your lab assignments, because they must be submitted in this, except with the lab assignments, I'm going to provide you a file that you can download and fill out. In a sense, you just put in the R code wherever I ask you to put R code. But what would be really nice is if for your lecture assignment, you were also writing your stuff in Markdown. That would be really cool. But anyway, that's it for that basic tutorial. I'm going to move into now more about how to use R proper, and not just how to use RStudio and R Markdown. Okay, so that's that. See you in a bit.